Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our session, 8 lessons we learned about donor retention, how matching gifts made all the difference. Our session today is brought to you by Arriva and Double the Donation. If you would love to drop a hello in the chat box, we would love to see who we have on, your organization, and where you're joining from so we can say hello back. And the chat box can be found at the bottom of your screen. All right. So if you are just joining us, welcome to our session, 8 lessons we learned about donor retention, how matching gifts made all the difference. We are going to go ahead and get started because we are at the top of the hour and we have a packed session, lots of information for you today. Today's session will be recorded and you are going to get a copy of the recording as well as a copy of the PowerPoint slides to take with you, share with your team, look through. So no need to take notes. You're going to get everything you see here today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to 8 lessons we learned about donor retention, how matching gifts made all the difference. I'm going to go ahead and get started by introducing our fantastic panel today. Joining us from Double the Donation, we have Anne Rosell Chugon. She is the Partnership Success Specialist with Double the Donation. How are you today, Anne?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I know the holiday season can get really busy, so really appreciate your time, guys.
Definitely. And we have David Blyer, who is the co-founder, president, and CEO of Ariva. Thanks for being here today, David.
Hey, Gabby, thank you for putting this on, and I'm very excited about, along with my co-host here, Ann, of hopefully giving the audience some really great information and giving them some good ideas today to take away for end of year and kicking off 2026. So thank you all for attending.
Thanks, David. And my name is Gabriella Salemi. I'm the director of marketing here at Ariva, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we do begin, I want to let everyone know we have time reserved at the end of the session for Q&A. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a box that says Q&A. Please enter all questions in that box so we can keep track. You can also enter them in the chat, but the Q&A is the way to make sure we see them. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with some poll questions. We'd love to learn a little bit more about who we have on today. We'd like to know, have you leveraged corporate matching gift opportunities within your fundraising and donor outreach efforts before? Give everybody some time to get their answers in. All right, so looking at the results, 76% of you have, and 24% of you have not. Our next poll, we would like to know, how many applications are you currently using to manage donor activities? And that can mean any applications, whether it's a donor management database, a peer-to-peer fundraising platform or a crowdfunding platform, an event platform, an Excel spreadsheet, anything that you're using to manage your donor database and donor activities. Donation pages, maybe they're hosted with one service. Some interesting answers pouring in. All right. So looking at the results, 27% are using 3 or more applications, 24% are using 2, 21% are using 5 or more, another 21% are using 1, and 6% of you are using 4. The next question we would like to ask, are you pleased with your current donor acquisition, retention, and engagement? And we're going to touch a little bit on all of these today as well.
And by the way, we should share this. This is all anonymous. We don't see who's answering this. I think it's really important that you know this. So if you answer honestly, it really, not that you wouldn't answer honestly, but it really does help to align in our conversations.
Awesome. And I see in the chat someone's asking retention. Retention just means your existing donors. Are they giving again? Are they engaged with your organization? All
Yeah,
right.
and I
So
think retention, I don't know if you want to, I think retention not only is retention to us isn't that you lost a constituent. Retention could literally be that you saw this year, or maybe there's a trend that a person or a group or whatever, you've been counting on a dollar every year and you're applying that dollar. And this year they gave 50% less or something less. So retention isn't just losing a constituent, it could be a reduction.
yes. So 59% of you said somewhat pleased with your donor acquisition, retention, and engagement. 29% said no, and 12% said yes. And next thing we would like to know, are you manually having to move your data from all those different solutions that you are managing your donor activities into one centralized location? Maybe that's one Excel spreadsheet that you're using. Maybe that's a donor management database, but are you having to manually move that data, which we know can be very time consuming? All right. So looking at the results, 65% of you said yes, that you were having to manually move that data around, which I can imagine how that must be very difficult. And then 35% of you said, I am not sure. All right. I will go ahead and pass it over to our panel.
Well, I get the pleasure to kick this off, Gabby, and I really do appreciate this. It was also very interesting that we had an opportunity this year to participate. Um, sorry, to participate in the Giving USA report and doing an educational webinar. So we learned a lot as well. But with the year ending, we really do believe playing such a pivotal role at the end of the year with, nonprofits and annual fundraising goals, it's really important to begin planning early with very specific target messaging to very specific certain types of groups. And, one thing I think that's been relevant and things that we've always hear about is no longer does one size fits all. It just doesn't work anymore. It's not resonating with certain audiences. And it truly is evident in the most recent Giving USA report. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it or read it. I know it was long, but it was very, very great, a lot of great information. But looking at the results from, this year's report and what we're seeing, some of the biggest challenges today for nonprofits is just that. The statistics reinforce what's going on in general with the industry. And honestly, what we've seen, it boils down to really three areas. And I think we've mentioned this a lot in different ways, but it's donor acquisition, it's donor engagement, and it's donor retention. And when you look at the current landscape of philanthropy, the data is a very powerful story. And I also think it's an urgent one. Again, it may not all apply for you, but this was nationwide. And when you look at the average donor retention rate is just, and I say just 45%, there's something there. Even more striking, only 19% of first-time donors give again. And at the same time, 53% of nonprofits say donor acquisition is one of their top three challenges. We're also seeing, a 4.7% decline in charitable giving dollars when adjusted for inflation, which means organizations are working harder to raise the same amount of money, yet there's still tremendous opportunity out there. And we are seeing this. Individuals continue to drive philanthropy, and it is making up 66% of all charitable giving in the United States in 2024. It also tells us simply success isn't about doing more. it's a lot of different things, but it's about connecting with the right people, connecting at the right time, connecting with the right messaging. And that's exactly what today's webinar is all about, how you can strengthen your year-end strategy, deeper donor relations, setting organizations up for the long-term success, into 2026. And hopefully you'll walk away with some of these. But these numbers aren't just stats, they're symptoms of the challenges that we're seeing. And again, like I said, it is about connection. And many donors give once. I live on both sides of the house. I'm a donor, I'm a volunteer, and yes, I provide software. And I see all sides of this. And I think it's how they feel about giving. And you never hear from the organizations again, in certain cases, in a meaningful way. They may not see the impact that their dollars are giving. Maybe they don't feel part of the story. Um, and when people don't feel connected, they truly move on. And I could tell you from experience, I've done the exact same thing, even when I believe in strongly. And the strongly could be a sector, it could be education. I gave to 3 schools, but if they're not connecting with me, I may not give to that other school. So I think this really starts with, intentional, right? Being intentional, how we communicate, when we communicate, what we say. I mean, I live and breathe this every single day, but, telling an impact story, not just outcomes. Donors want to know the difference that they made, not just the totals you raised. We could talk a little bit more about, segmentation and personalization, but like I said at the beginning, one size fits all emails, they just don't work anymore. We got to speak to our donors based upon the relationships that you have with them, your understanding, whether they're first time givers or long time supporters. It is very different. Early on, showing gratitude. I know I take nothing for granted, but stewardship isn't just something you do, after December 31st. It starts the moment someone starts giving. And there's a lot of conversations around this as well. And then, engage year round. I mean, nonprofits to thrive in this competitive and challenging industry, it's how you treat donors, and you've got to treat them like partners, not as transactions. I keep on hearing this is not transactional, this is not transactional, and you can't make it transactional. And if you can make every donor feel seen, somehow valued, part of something bigger, your retention, your acquisition, your fundraising results, I really believe will change dramatically. And we see this and we track a lot of this information outside of the giving report, even with our own clients. And we see when they do different things or suggestions that will suggest, we've seen donor acquisition increase, donor retention, faster acknowledgement. But this is exactly what we'll focus on today. I hope these strategies that will help you finish the year strong, and build lasting momentum into 2026.
Those are some really great points, David. I just want to say I really liked when you pointed out urgency from all of these numbers. I do agree. I think you've outlined really well the crisis nonprofits are facing today in this kind of ever-changing fundraising landscape, right? And as you can tell, there's really a lot that y'all can change in our strategies just by reading and actually understanding data. Exhibit A right here, I have with you some recent findings also from the FEP report, but in the more recent times in Q2 this year. So based on their recent findings, it looks like we're actually seeing a more stable financial state for nonprofits, where total dollars raised through the second quarter of this year increased by nearly 3%, which, as you can tell, is a huge win coming from the 4.7% decline that David mentioned earlier. But does this really mean we've already solved the challenge? I hate to be the one to burst the bubble, but I really just think it's important that we stick to our facts. Fact number one is that 3% jump that we're pointing out is almost entirely being carried by your major gifts. I mean, bless the major donors. They are keeping the lights on, but I do believe that this second fact is actually the most important. We're still seeing a continuous decline in the total number of individual donors. And the hardest hit really is coming from our smaller smallest actually donor group, which is the $1 to $100 givers, those who make up over half of all donors. They experienced a sharp 10.5% drop in participation in that more recent study by FEP. And so, for me, here's the reality check. We do have major donors masking the problems, and while more than half of our everyday donors are quietly walking out the door. I would say you hear this all the time in investing, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I feel like that also applies directly to your donor file. Every donor from both ends of the giving spectrum, whether that will be from the major donor group or that $1 to $100 group of donors, they are all investments of your time, effort, and marketing dollars. So when you put all your faith in just one group, in that major donor group, you make your mission incredibly vulnerable. It's those everyday donors really who are the foundation, and they are the ones who keep missions alive year after year. And so the question really becomes, how do we stop the bleeding? How do we keep these vital everyday donors connected, as David mentioned, valued, and really continuously giving? Next slide, please. I would say one good measure of how well organizations keep their donors connected is really through their donor retention rate. As mentioned earlier, I believe this has been emphasized that the national average donor retention rate is really a tough number to look at. We are seeing right around 45%, which means that for every $100 that you had last year, on average, you either lost or you've seen some decline from that 55%. Now, if we think about the cost of that loss, you are actually going to spend huge amounts of money just to replace the 55%, and a lot more if you think about it compared to just retaining them. And for me, that is why essentially you need a really strong donor retention rate. It is sort of the ultimate barometer of your financial health. Because if you think about it, if your organization has a high and reliable retention rate, it means that you are stable enough to expand operations. So you can commit to new programs because you know the donor revenue will be there next year. Also, you're able to make reliable fundraising estimates, which is really, really important because your budget team can forecast revenue with confidence. You can eliminate the need for constant, frantic course correction. And lastly, something I would say that a lot of us has been challenged with in the past few years, you are strong enough to recover from financial setbacks. You have a loyal base that will rally around you during these unexpected economic shifts or fundraising gaps. And I think my next point would be, can we move to the next slide, please? If we want to take a look at improving that donor retention rate, we'd also, of course, want to look at the donor life cycle because we want to understand where this cycle breaks. And right now, the system is failing immediately after that acquisition, leading to that massive retention failure, as you can see from that lapse. It is quite difficult, as David mentioned, only 1 out of 5 donors would give again after their first gift, and that's the lapse that could cost you dearly. However, I do also have this figure right here that once you surpass that hurdle, once you get that second gift, the payoff is absolutely massive. Aside from just receiving the immediate second donation, the loyalty factor also skyrockets. You move the donor from coming from one gift to being an actual partner, as David mentioned. They are then far more likely to continue the cycle at an average of 60% for the following gift, which means your organization gains stable, really predictable outcome.
Well, that I think a lot of these things were very helpful, and the things that you're saying. I'd love to just talk maybe about some ideas, but really, you got to follow the stats, right? One thing is being emotional, the other thing is understanding the statistics in this. And when you see that 61% of donors worldwide prefer giving online, you need to make sure you have a very strong online presence. And I'm going to walk you through some ideas, not all the ideas, because this slide I could stay on for the entire hour. And I don't think Ann would like that either, or the audience for that matter. But not only should you have a very strong online presence, I also believe that you should have an offline presence as well. When you think about multiple ways of giving, I just want to throw out a few scenarios that we have seen a lot. One is, and I take nothing for granted, but I see this literally multiple times a day, is websites. I mean, your website is the foundation of your online presence. Do not diminish that value. It really, you got to make sure it's mobile responsive. It has to be visually appealing. It has to be truly easy to navigate. We even use the word donor-centric websites. And we do build websites, but they're donor centric. And it's a really amazing thing. But you have to highlight key sections, your mission, your success stories. Donate now. Believe it or not, I've seen it. Even a donate on a page isn't always placed correctly. And even though it could be placed in a certain place, doesn't mean that they're going to look at that. But that's a whole other conversation. But if you really go back and look at your website, and you need to really think about it differently. Any direction that we can help, and I do. I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to sell here at all, but I'd love to give any recommendations. Everybody's talking about social media strategy today, and it is important. Social media is where it's at. But again, you got to figure out where that social media and who your audience is. You've got to share that mission-driven content that educates, it inspires, and also always having some sort of call to action. Use a mix, figure out what works, whether it's photos. I mean, I was just on with um, somebody like literally an hour before this, and it was amazing how they're showing photos and results or videos or testimonials to showcase the impact that individuals are having. And again, tailoring your message, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, it depends on your audience, and the messaging on each one of those social medias should be maybe a little bit differently. When I mentioned offline, you got to promote offline events through emails, through social media. You've got to capture compelling content. We talk about this all the time. What's going to make this compelling? What is going to draw them to this? That is going to amplify your online presence afterwards as well. You have to use consistent branding. We talk about this all the time. Branding is key. Messages across all channels to strengthen recognition. And it also, at the same time, it truly builds trust. If you have sponsorships or call them partners, I've seen this a lot as well. Collaborate with them, whether they're local businesses or media outlets, really work with them. If you have influencers, whether they're in the companies or the media outlets that you can align with, this is going to help your mission extend your reach even more. So you've got to think about channels. And I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but I've seen an evolution that between an event or even your campaign of matching gift capabilities and how you can tie so many other wonderful things. But again, we can talk about that. But it does go back a little bit more where peer-to-peer fundraising helps, even if you're doing a matching gift campaign, how you could get your constituents, your board members, your active donors, your volunteers to also go out through what I'll call peer-to-peer fundraising. I've seen organizations do it through team fundraising, but when you empower supporters to truly raise funds on your behalf, and they're doing this through personalized campaigns because it's an individual, and also having that ability to share it through social media, it's a very powerful thing. Other ways that you can do this, if you're not using, and I know people have had success with it. I've heard others haven't, but there are strong ways of even using a text-based donation platform and giving other people that want to use it through a text-based donation or a matching gift through this. Integrating software, and we talked about, I think there were some statistics how many applications you have, but if you really are looking for a platform, and you should, that is fully integrated with all these different applications in one unified database. So if you're using an event platform, you're capturing all of that information instantaneously. If you're using live mobile bidding and you're getting confirmations immediately and capturing that information, it will allow you to bring back factor acknowledgement, retain those clients, and in many cases, increase your donor acquisition. I still believe it or not, I live in the world of digital, right? I mean, we have a software company, but I truly still believe in the power of direct mailing. And, but it's not to everybody. And you've got to understand if you have that database and you can segment out within that database, who is that audience? And you should be able to, even on your donation forms, on any forms, how do I want to be connected? And it should show you within your database once they do that. So now you know how to market electronically and how you need to do direct mails. So there's a lot of that. I'm a big believer. I mean, I've seen this day in and day out. So it's not just what I think should be, but it's calls to actions. A well-designed call to action on every page is the gateway to securing better support. It really is. I'll say it's donor support, right? Making sure your donation buttons, or links are very visible across your entire website, your emails, your donation page. It has to be eye-catching. Of course, language, donate now. I mean, make a difference, whatever that is. And you don't always have to buy something new. It's just these minimal changes that you may just not be thinking about. Donation levels. Oh my God, I have so many different ways of customizing donation levels where you're asking for a donation, but you're suggesting amounts alongside impact examples. $25 feeds a family this week, or $10 provides a welcome bag. I know, and not that it's a restricted gift, so you can make sure it's not restricted, but they think I'm giving $10, like Ann said, a dollar to $100. Wow, I can help with a warm bag, or $25 helps with feeding a family of five within our organization. There's a lot of different things on that. But, minimal steps, for clicking donate, right? How do I get information immediately? How do I get acknowledgement that I know when somebody gave? We talk a lot. I don't know if you have the capability. I'm hearing a lot about this out right now, but A/B testing on your call to action. It's the same thing when you send out an event registration. Did you get a lot of registrations? Do you need to change that, subject line? Do you need to change that subtext line? So a lot of that is very important. When you're doing matching gifts and that process of streamlining that, you want to make sure that your donor experiences increases with that donor satisfaction. The donors really feeling it, right? And also you want to make sure on a donation, whether it's a matching gift capability or reoccurring donation, that it is automated in the sense that they're getting an automatic thank you acknowledgement receipt, that you're receiving a notification of who that was with the information to do an outreach. And that should also reduce administrative tasks for your team that allows to go back on that acknowledgement time, that phone call, that meeting. I mean, you've got to, reduce those administrative tasks. And, I've got lots of stories around that. Highlighting reoccurring donations, the options of doing that, encouraging, why this is more sustainable from a support perspective. Maybe you could use new language like join our monthly giving circle, right? I mean, I love this giving circles. These are really fantastic to really think about that, whether it's helping monthly on a double donations or giving reoccurring donations. um, Make sure your tax receipts are automated, send instant professional tax receipts that also include a heartfelt thank you message and the details of that donation. We talk a lot about, integrated payment options. I mean, I hear a lot about that today, right? Make sure your platform offers more than just Visa, American Express. I mean, is it really providing and supporting that digital wallet capability today? Whether it's Google Pay or Apple Pay or, bank transfers, accepting stock, and things of that sort. And then track the donor information efficiently. You've got to have your donor relationship management database keeping records that you can now go in and segment within your database to target certain campaigns in a different way. And it should be easy for this. But building a robust online and an offline presence is simplifying your donation process. It really is. It's streamlining your operations. You can deepen relationships with your donors. You can create, giving experiences that inspires this long-term support. And every touch point is an opportunity really to continue showing your mission, continue building trust, and it really just reinforces the incredible impact donors can make through your organization. One example that's on the website. I love this. This is just one of many that we have, and it's not custom or anything like that. But go to this Ronald McDonald NM org, and you can see how they're doing it. And it does combine or could combine not only a single donation, but even matching gifts for these.
I also, as someone who's like talking about matching gifts, I would say every day almost, I really resonate with what you said, David, about really using your websites as your best resource to share with your donor base. I mean, just talking about matching gifts specifically, I have heard of a lot of really good success stories from our own clients about how having a matching gift page in their websites has actually made tremendous difference in terms of their matching a strategy. But yeah, skipping ahead, I do want to go back to my earlier point about really dissecting that donor life cycle. I know I mentioned there that upgrading is also an essential part of that donor life cycle there. And quite honestly, who would turn down a larger gift, right? Statistically, matching gifts can quite literally encourage your donors to give more. For me, this was a crazy statistic when I first learned about it, but actually, 1 in 3 donors will give a larger gift than originally planned if they know a match is offered. And more than that, the increase will be an average of 51%. So there's just so much advantage there you can get from even just mentioning matching gifts itself. So maybe doing that on your website, even on your offline appeals, would make a huge difference. And I want to mention a quick definition for those who aren't aware of what matching gifts are. I think we saw about 25% when we had that poll earlier. It is essentially a corporate program where employers donate funds to a nonprofit organization to double or triple an employee's personal donation to the same charity. So if John makes a gift to the Cat Rescue Club and John works for Apple, which has a matching gift program, John can simply request that Apple match his gift. So going back, as you can see, the concept is really straightforward. As a donor, if you know you can give additional support for free, that automatically fuels you to take advantage of the freebie, making you want to give more. And of course, as a nonprofit organization, you'd also want to take advantage of this fact by doing all that you can to make your donors aware of the opportunity. I could probably go on and on about the different strategies in terms of marketing matching gifts to your donors, but I would say simply mentioning matching gifts in all your fundraising appeals is just a no-brainer. I know most organizations try to stay conservative with adding to their appeals, but technically, since we already know that it is an easy way for you to ask your donors to give more without actually telling them to spend more, I would say it is definitely worth adding to that list of appeals that you have. And I want to say, last piece of advice I want to share here is to also be very mindful of the uniqueness of each matching gift opportunity. We do have different parameters to a matching gift program. There is the eligibility of the donor, the eligibility of the organization. And this isn't to say that those other metrics or parameters aren't important as these three that I've listed here. But if you're just looking at really driving larger gifts, I would really say look into the program's maximum amount, match ratio, the program deadline, more importantly. And I would say, at least for the program deadline, I have found a lot of these matching gift programs to be usually having their deadline by the end of the year, but you should still definitely look out for those programs with more specific dates. And I also want to say, especially looking at major gifts, there are really some notable companies out there. A couple that I have in mind, Deloitte, I know they match up to 32,500. Coca-Cola, I know has a 2-to-1 match ratio. Soros Fund Management, which I think is the company with the most generous matching gift program, has also a 2-to-1 match ratio and $100,000 of a maximum match amount. So as you can see, all of these opportunities are opportunities, but if you can handpick and select all of those with the most generous programs, I think that is something that is definitely worth using your team's time for and investing a lot of um, efforts and time for as well.
That's great. Well, integrating matching gifts, and that's really part of this conversation about double the donations. But as you evaluate ways to strengthen your digital fundraising strategy, I'm going to give you a couple of recommendations that I talk to many nonprofit leaders almost daily in different ways. But this is really based upon what we've seen to drive the highest conversion rates and revenue growth across all organizations. I mean, in many cases, we talk about clients that are already using this through Arriva, but leveraging corporate matching really does unlock revenue that truly a lot of organizations are leaving on the table. I know we put in the field a matching gift, but it was a manual entry, and we love the fact that we could integrate with double the donation. So on our donation pages, that they do fully integrate, matching gifts with double the donations, it really allows the donors to instantly check if their employees are matching their gifts. It's sort of, and what you mentioned earlier, no nonprofits that truly enable matching at the moment of giving sees a significant increase in the total donation value. Would you say that's what you're seeing as well, Anne?
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I would want to add there too, David, something that they could also find in our statistics at Double the Donation is the effectiveness of actually implementing that search tool on their forms. We've found that donors actually, I mean, 73% of donors actually use that matching gift search field when they see it appear on their donation forms.
And I always say, always place the matching search directly on your primary giving form page. It really makes a difference. The easier you make it for donors to complete a gift and discover a matching eligibility, the more likely they're going to finish the transaction. I can tell you that right now. If they're just trying to figure it out or putting the name, they may not finish it, or they may not even fill it in. You want to, I know Ariva provides unlimited, what I call unlimited donation pages. And if you want to learn more about that, it's not just a single donation page, but you should be able to correct, if you can't, you should, but you should be able to create unlimited donation pages, and each being tailored to specific types of campaigns or events or appeals, or maybe it's an audience segment, using campaign specific pages, not uh, it's not a one generic donation page. I guess that's really what I'm saying. It's not just a generic, but it's truly personalized messaging and branding. When you do it this way, will improve your conversion rates. I know this because we track this literally monthly, and I can see what's happening out there. Making sure the giving experience that a donor is having is also, and I don't take this for granted, is truly aligned with your brand, right? Every page should be customized to your branding, to your coloring, to your the messaging. I mean, consistency, consistency, consistency. It truly builds trust. It leads to higher completion rates. Donors feel like they're not being left behind. And these are other important things. Another important thing that I see all the time, and it kind of like we changed the direction in the way we did this, is embedding your giving pages directly into your website, that the constituents are having a seamless experience. And I use a lot of different analogies on this, but I'm going to make it simple. When somebody comes to your page, and I've seen the opposite, and they're filling this out and they're clicking on it, they're being pushed off of your website, and that vendor is being promoted with their URL, and you are definitely going to get your donation, but now you've got to, that donor is not going to come back to your website. I guarantee you that. With simple embedding, donors stay on your domain throughout the entire, in this case, I'm going to use the word transaction, but it eliminates, first of all, it eliminates redirects whenever possible, right? Being pushed off of your website. It keeps donors on your site, which then produces higher giving capabilities and higher totals and better donor confidence. So they're never leaving your website. And we have seen when clients are using it this way, using Ariva, their site engagement has gone up by over 215%. And I'm proud to say those things. We're not there to promote the Ariva name on your donor page. We're not there to push them off of it onto our site to learn more about Ariva. We want you to have that captured donor. Why do you think, this is not a political conversation, but why do you think Facebook is so successful? Because I use that word click. And when you're on Facebook, you can click anywhere and you're never leaving. This is why they're selling and can charge so much. This is the thought process. Don't let your donor pages leave your website. Get that site engagement, get that trust. It's a really important thing.
I definitely agree with everything you mentioned there, David. But I think also one thing that I would want to mention, and kind of the reason why we even have all of these solutions for their matching gift strategy being integrated into the donation form itself or to the donation process itself, is because of really what we try to target, which is the lack of donor awareness. A lot of your donors are actually unaware that they're even eligible for a matching gift program or that a matching gift program even exists in the first place. And we do have statistics to back this up. Our statistics show that only 14% of donors are actually aware that their company has a matching gift program, and only 8% actually understand how to participate. So, also coming back from what David mentioned, really highlighting that giving momentum, also being able to provide them next steps. If we're talking about making the process easy for your donors, not even going to be talking about the double the donation integration here, but really if you can automatically serve the information right when they are in the donation process, I feel like that is really where we would see all of these matching gift requests to be driven into submission.
Perfect. I just touch on this as you think about, strengthening the organization's ability to capture every available dollar. Here's just some thoughts that, it brings to my attention about managing matching gifts truly effectively. First of all, I think matching gifts should be part of your regular fundraising operations. I don't think it should just be a one-off on this. And I've seen a lot of donation pages that don't have it. We recommend it on every one of our donation pages, whether it's a manually or it is integrated with double the donations. But with Ariva, your admin user have full access when they're using the double the donations on our platform, a full-on dashboard, giving you real-time visibility with every match opportunity that donors generate. I recommend assigning someone on your team when you're doing, and maybe it is a campaign for matching gifts, but when you can assign someone on your team to review this activity during that campaign, or if you're doing it on a regular basis, you know, the nonprofit in general that treats matching gifts truly as an active revenue stream, not as a passive bonus. Maybe I don't know if you would use that word, but constantly recovering more funds on this. You got to rely on verified data. You got to get out of this guesswork scenario. So when engaging donors about matching opportunities, you really want to have, at least in the back end, that every donor's entry is checked automatically against the double the donations extensive corporate matching list. This means your team can trust the matching eligibility and instructions that are really accurate. So using verified data to trigger immediate or personal follow-ups, or either automated or manual, whatever that is, so to capture those matches while the donors are motivated, they're still high, and you want to definitely get in touch with them as well.
Right. totally highlighting what you mentioned there about maybe not being too passive about their strategy and not to dwell on this too much for the sake of time, but it's really following up even after that gift was made, even when we're done in that giving mindset that we kept talking about, just by being proactive about your messaging of how important matching gifts would be for your organization and more importantly, where they would find these next steps. Because again, there is that lack of donor awareness. So by being able to target that, we're actually being able to improve your own matching gift strategy. Yes, I feel like we have talked about this a lot throughout, David. It's really making your donors feel valued and even using matching gifts as a way to acknowledge your donors again, not just because they made that gift, but maybe even because they made some next steps, they made some extra efforts to actually submit that matching gift request.
I love talking about value proposition. That's another one I think we could, you and I, Ann, could spend hours on. But, when I talk to nonprofits, really across the country, the one thing I hear over and over again is how difficult it is or how difficult it's becoming to stand out. I mean, there's so many different challenges, and it's not just on fundraising, but it's just connecting with people's hearts, and attention that's, you know, with this noisy world that we live in, how do I gain that? So, there's obviously a few things that are up here, and I could go into more detail, but every nonprofit we know has a mission, but not every, but not every nonprofit can clearly communicate why it matters right now. It goes beyond that mission. The organizations that I see that raise the most money have learned to connect their cause to something that's more immediate, that's personal for their donors, something that makes them say, I understand why this matters and I want to be part of it. And that is something that the mindset out there has to change. Data informs, there's no doubt about it, but stories inspire. And we hear a lot about storytelling today, right? I've never seen so many companies and consultants start building companies around storytelling. And a donor might remember your mission statement once. It's funny. I won't put anybody here. I go back to my company and say, do you know what our mission statement is? But I will tell you what they don't forget. They never forget the story of one life your organization changed. Storytelling transforms fundraising. And I'll say this again, from a transaction into a shared purpose. They believe in it. There's always that alignment. A picture, a short video, even a single image with a powerful caption can do what words sometimes just can't. Um, you know, you've got to feel like you're helping people feel like they're really part of that mission and what you're doing. So visuals cut through the noise. It really does. It makes messaging memorable. And I think scheduling consistency and timing about when you're sending out these type of email campaigns and however you're doing that or social media posts. You just can't send one email and expect great results. We see that in everything that we do here. I mean, I see it all day long. It's not one and done. Your organization that performs the best plans, for their campaigns, scheduling this out strategically, even during days or times, and tailoring the messages. Again, I go back to it with your different audience. So every donor feels like you're speaking to them directly. And it really is important. I think a few other things, and I know we're limited with time, but segmenting your audience. When I mentioned this, you have to have that ability to go back into your donor database and look at history, understand their interests, look at their geographic locations. I mean, there's a lot of other things. So, for instance, even first-time donors that may receive a welcome and thank you, while others, are different because they're long-term donors getting different updates on legacy things that they've supported. You got to know who your audience is. Um, I just think a lot of these, for timing reasons, when you combine these four elements, clarity, storytelling, emotion, and precision, you're going to build more real connections. And connections is what drives giving.
Right. And I think essentially all that David has discussed has been talking about donor cultivation already. And I could read through these 3 points, but I feel like our major theme here is really talking about how to make your donors feel valued and even how to use matching gifts to maximize the support that they just gave and actually establish that relationship with your donors. I feel like one really good tip that I've learned through the years of talking to clients about their matching gift strategy is actually leveraging social proof. I'm not sure if you guys have ever done this before, but I've heard of really unique and fun examples from actual clients, like these screenshots in this slide. I know of like a Match Like Megan kind of campaign that talks about both thanking your donors and actually highlighting that extra step that they made and doing it even in a really unique way to make sure you are actually connecting with your donors. And I think my last point here actually is all about analyzing donor data. I mean, we started the session talking about insights and how important these are, and basically how we were able to drive the entire conversation based off of those metrics that we first mentioned in the beginning. And so that's also something that's true for your fundraising strategy in general, really seeing the importance in donor insights. I think David has already touched on this, being able to personalize your communication based on the information you know of your donors, actually getting to know your supporters by heart. I mean, I know that is kind of hard to actually accomplish, but just being able to make your team aware of all of these insights, you are able to surface a lot of opportunities in terms of personalizing your communication, but also actually discovering workplace giving opportunities.
For time, I'm just going to talk about a couple of there's a lot here, and I think we've said it a lot. One size doesn't fit all. Research and define your target audience. We've touched on that. I do want to just mention that these strategies really do work. I mean, when you're thinking about precision targeting, and you can really truly research and segment to make sure your focus on your resources has high potential. With your donors and getting a maximized return on their investment, the target marketing is important. It does go back, and we have a lot more to talk about on this, but on donor segmentation. But if you're really setting up your donor relationship management database, you can really do better research and better segmentation. You can tailor these messages, tailor the messages in your campaigns that truly demonstrate that you understand and you value your supporters, and they're going to foster more trust and more loyalty. Expanding the reach, there's so many different ways, and this is a longer conversation, but truly the digital world has changed, whether it's through partnerships, whether it's through social media, that really will help you connect with the right audiences. But you need to, again, understand those audiences and figure out how you're going to, truly inspire them to join your mission. And then, sustain engagement. We talk about that, retention, but data drives insights, and going back to that data segmentation, it will allow you to continuously refine, improve your strategies, making sure ongoing donor support, and that you can evaluate based upon your donor retention. It can also apply to your donor acquisition. I get to talk a little bit about Ariba, and I wish I could raise everybody's hand here. I don't know. I know you know about Ariba because you came to the webinar. I know you know about Double the Donations, but I'm really curious how many people actually know what Ariba does or how long we've been around. But I just want to share with you, we've been around for over 30 plus years. We have thousands of clients, primarily in the United States, but also worldwide. Through different applications, our clients are doing so many different types of events, whether they're live, virtual, or hybrid, or galas. It's just one piece of what we do. And the nice thing is, because I know there's a lot of different software companies out there that you could choose, but we have purposely built this exclusively for nonprofits. We've also been vetted and approved by many of the national organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs and Guildas and community foundations and Tides and Rotaries and dioceses and healthcares and Ronald McDonald House charities. And in fact, I think we have over 60 or 70% of every Ronald McDonald House charity in the world using, our products that are out there today. But really, what Ariva did was Ariva identified a problem, and I think we've talked a lot about that today. Even in the polling. But the problem is there's a lot of great software out there. I'm not going to talk about anybody else's software in that aspect of it. But when you have multiple applications and using event registration for one and campaign management for another and a donor database or a donation platform, an auction platform, or peer-to-peer fundraising or team fundraising, and again, it was over 60% have many applications. Moving data around is hard. Moving data around adds to that administrative task. It limits the communication between your nonprofit and your constituents. It goes back to that inconsistent donor engagement that you're having. You have to figure out a streamline. And the way that Ariba has done that is through our flagship product, which is called Exceed Further. And Exceed Further is the only, and I can literally say this. Now, there's a lot of companies that have a lot of applications what we have, but nobody has all the applications that we're providing as one solution with one database. And the other nice thing I just want to say is you can read all the applications. You don't have to buy them all. Don't get afraid of, oh my God, I got to buy them all. We look at what you have, we understand what you need, we look at the future, and together we'll customize a solution, but it's going to increase your donor acquisition. It's going to increase your donor retention. It's going to provide you faster acknowledgement on all fronts. And again, just to reiterate, it is all one solution with one unified database. And
Thanks,
Yeah,
David.
this.
Oh, really quickly,
Oh.
I'm just going to put a poll up on the screen. If you would like to learn more about any of Ariva's software or services or solutions, please go ahead and hit yes, and someone from our team will reach out to give you a tailored consultation. All right.
Thank you, Gabby. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the Ariva team for having us here. I would say, aside from the integration that we just shared earlier, it is also a part of our collaboration with Ariva to be able to share both our expertise in educational sessions like this one. So I hope you also join us in our future sessions. But just a quick context also about double the donation. I feel like I've talked about this really briefly a while ago by actually sharing what our tools look like, but we are essentially an automated matching gift software that helps you streamline the process, being able to integrate into your solutions like your Ariva donation forms, and being able to identify opportunities for you guys, and also doing that proactive outreach so it doesn't really take much of your staff time to get that matching gift revenue. And I think we could share some resources about our ROI, but I really would just like to invite everyone. I think to the next slide, we could do a poll about if you guys want to do a demo on double the donation services, because if you get connected with a representative, you'd actually be able to get your own specific analysis of the matching gift ROI that we we have seen from organizations of your size or from that geography and things like that. So really make sure to get a personal and customized demo for your organization.
Thanks, Anne. And you will see that poll that Anne was referring to up on the screen now. If you hit yes, I will make sure that Anne gets your information and puts you in contact with the right team. Okay, so we have a few of great questions in the chat right now. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can see all of our presenters on a large view. I'll go ahead. This question comes from Michelle. She says, when someone gives online, whether it's $10 or $15,000, they receive an emailed thank you. But do you think it is best to send a mailed thank you as well to all donors, no matter what amount, or just people at a certain level, for example, $250 and upwards?
and you want to take that first? You would like me to? Whatever you please.
I feel like that is more of a question for you, David, but I do have my own insights there. I feel like the question would be, do you think the benefits would overtake the cost of actually following up offline? Because I know it might be a bit costly for organizations, but I love to hear your thoughts as well, David.
Yeah. You know, I know a lot of organizations are not big and have the resources out there, right? And I understand that. But a handwritten note, and that's what you're saying, I think is so powerful. I've literally gotten literally handwritten notes, not a printed note that I know was another printed note, but handwritten notes. And and to your point, Ann, whether it's $250 or under, maybe it's a certain note. Maybe if it's $250 or higher, it's another certain note. There's internship programs that you can get students that would love to do this all year round. And I don't mean writing handwritten notes, but handwritten notes and having the executive director sign these things. If you have the time, it's the most wonderful thing because, and to your point, we do automatic thank you acknowledgement receipts and tax receipts, and everybody gets that, right? But it's nice to get, but it's impersonal. If you have the time to pick up the phone and say thank you, and that's faster to way to do it, that's even more compelling than a personal note. But if there's a happy medium in between, I think personal notes, normally you only get them during the holiday season. I don't know why. I've seen a few nonprofits that literally do it when you send a donation and they actually write you a nice personal note. But they also say, by the way, you just helped a child, or by the way, this just fed somebody and it made me feel good. So it's just a matter of time and resources at the end of the day. But I think it is a very powerful thing to do.
Thanks, David.
I
And
do have
if,
a quick
oh,
note to, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Ann,
I
go
just
ahead.
feel like this example that I've learned from a client is actually the most fun kind of way to thank donors after they made a matching gift request from their company. But I know some organizations also thank their donors for submitting that matching gift request through puns. Like I know an organization has sent the double stuffed Oreos um,
Yeah,
Mm.
that's in the market just to thank them for that match that they made. So I feel like
yeah,
if you can get crazy and creative about those follow-up thank yous, I think that's also one thing to look at.
yeah. Another thing, even on your website, you could even put a dedicated page about reoccurring donations, a tribute, not, it's not just a memorial tribute wall, but a tribute wall for everybody doing matching gift walls, right? I mean, you can do these things. They're very powerful.
Great
Totally.
points. We have another question in a similar vein. Can you talk about direct mail and when is the best time for acquisition? We are finding spring and summer slow and fall is the best. Is this common or are there better ways to increase acquisition in this time frame or should we double down on the fall?
I think that
Hey,
might be yours, David.
Actually, I'm going to let my marketing genius actually answer that, Gabby. You do a lot of email marketing all year round. You look at timeframes, you look at dates, you look at months. We've literally had events that everybody said, don't do it. It's the slowest time of the year. Vacations are coming, or summer's out, or to that point. I love Gabby because she says, I don't believe that. And you have shown the results in a way that you've proved people wrong on that. So I'd love for you to maybe share your thoughts on that, Gabby.
Yeah, well, we just did a great webinar a couple weeks ago all about end of year giving. And so it's no surprise that in the fall you're seeing a lot of more responses. But I would say the biggest thing probably is about tracking and looking at what messaging resonates in your marketing emails. If there's one maybe subject line that you had a higher open rate on, or maybe a preview text that was really effective, that's kind of a good way to tell what resonated with whoever you're emailing to. Click rates as well. You can see on a lot of marketing platforms, if you're using a MailChimp to send out emails, you can see where donors are clicking. So maybe there's a CTA that has a higher conversion rate. Just tracking and looking at those details and trying different messaging, maybe having one email that is story based, one that has maybe some bullet points, less text. Those are all things that you can do. But to your point, at least on our end on the marketing side, there is really no downtime. We've done events in the spring, we've done events in the fall, and they've been successful for us. So I haven't noticed that downturn as much. I don't know, Anne or David, if you have anything to add in there. No? Okay. I know we're over time. We do have one more question. We use Razor's Edge NXT. Can Ariva's matching gift and donation forms connect with our database?
I'm going to say yes, we absolutely can. We do have other platforms like Racer's Edge that don't necessarily want to use their donations, and where we have the ability to really capture all of your, whether it's the donations and matching gifts, or unlimited donation pages, or if you want to, another solution for event registration and peer-to-peer and team fundraising and auction software all in one solution, where you can eliminate a lot of the things, because we see that with a lot of black bot clients out there. You can certainly capture all of that, and then there's different ways that we can upload into, or you can upload into your Racer's Edge platform. Absolutely.
And then follow-up question to that. If an organization has the whole Ariva system, including the website, so all the pages we shared today, can you also create donor tribute walls?
I've seen donor tribute walls. Yes, we can. And there's a few examples that are out there. Yes. Like you could sell bricks, and I've seen it all. So, yes.
Um, well, those are all the questions we have. I know we're a little bit over, but are there any final thoughts from Anne, David, anything you'd like to add in?
One thing I do want to add is really what I what resonated with me when David mentioned not being passive with your matching gift strategy. I mean, with your overall fundraising strategy, that is, but more especially with your fundraising strategy, I would say, just because, again, we're trying to really overcome that roadblock of the lack of donor awareness at Double the Donation. And we found that really being proactive with all your appeals, all your mentions around matching gifts, and making sure you follow up with actual next steps that wouldn't make it hard for your donors to actually follow through would be really our best practice in getting that matching gift ROI.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I mean, I'd just like to say, first of all, I don't know how many people have maintained it. I know we're over. First of all, I want to thank Anne for participating and sharing all of your thoughts and insights. It's great. Gabby, I'd like to thank you for always putting these things together, because they truly are educational in nature. Also, to everybody that is on here, I really hope and pray that you got something out of today. I know we took an hour out of your day, but these are really important for us to pass on the things that we're learning, whether we're learning it internally from what we do, learning it from other consultants that we work with, learning it from clients that have been successful and seeing results. But it is important, and I really hope I'd love to do a poll or say it in the chat or something that you got something out of it. And if you didn't, please let us know, because those are just as important. If you didn't get something out of today and you were expecting something different, the more we learn, the better we will provide information to you. So I want to thank you all for everything that you do in your community, everything that you do in your organization. We know it is not easy, and sometimes it feels like it's pushing a boulder up a hill. Don't stop. All right. Don't stop. Keep on doing what you're doing. Without the nonprofit industry, we would not be in a good world. And you guys are making it a better world. So thank you for that.
Awesome, David. Thank you all for joining us today. You will receive a recorded version of this in an email afterwards, so make sure you look out for that. We hope you have a great day, and we would love to see you on our next Ariva webinar. Make it a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.